Okay, so the first of the movement screens was the deep squat. Basically, the deep squat was measuring your ankle, knee, hip, shoulder mobility. It was also looking at your spinal stability. So if there was a failure in this test, it's going to be one of two reasons. The first is going to be a generalised stiffness in the body or in one of those specific joints, and the second would be an asymmetry, so an imbalance between the right and left side of your body in either mobility, stability or coordination. So if there is an imbalance present, it would probably show up on that inline lunge test as well. What are the solutions? We need to do our self-myofascial release. So with a ball, a roller, or with an Nalgene bottle or something like that, as you've seen in our SMR release techniques video, basically you want to find a spot that has the tender point or trigger point sensation, and you need to work through that regularly. Now, for example, if in the deep squat test you found that the arms weren't able to stay above the head and were coming forward, then you're going to have to work on that anterior and posterior deltoid in terms of your myofascial release. If the heels were coming up, it's going to be the ankles that are a problem, so you really want to roll through your feet. So that's the first solution, and that should be being done on a daily basis anyway. Secondly, we've got to work on some corrective exercise, so some corrective exercise progressions, and we start with a very simple forward bend that you can be doing daily. Now, I'm about to demonstrate that, but when you're doing the forward bend, the whole idea is that we're getting some relaxation happening in the back, so lower back muscles. So, simple exercise. You want your feet to be elevated, so either on a book, quite a small step. I've got a Duradisc here that I'm elevating mine on, not ideal, you want something quite stable. Arms are up and hinging forward from the hips. You're reaching down into a forward bend, hanging there, and up you come. Okay, so it's really interesting to measure this pre and post rolling your feet out, for example. Once you've done it with the feet elevated, the toes elevated, you're going to do it with the heels elevated. So same position, heels are elevated, coming up and just rocking on forward. Very simple, but something that can really, really help with your deep squat. Once you've done that, the next progression is to actually work a deep squat, but with a bit of assistance. So we have the heels elevated again. You come up and then down into that forward bend, but your hands are now resting on a block. And depending on how much inflexibility you had, will depend on the height of the box. You then come down into that deep squat, keeping the hands on the box. Your next progression is going to be to bring one arm up. Now you can see that I'm quite limited there in my shoulder mobility. So when you bring the arm up, there shouldn't be movement at the hips or the knees. So you might not be at this point yet, but you can work through it. Once you've worked through all that myofascial release, the next progression will be to be in this position with the arms up, and the final progression will be to actually stand up out of the deep squat. So see where you're at, slowly work through those progressions over the next couple of weeks. See if you can improve on that deep squat test when you retest.